as tape. I am tape. There's no tape anymore, is there? Let me adjust this a little bit. Going live here. I'm going to see what happens. I'm going to try to do this a little more regular. Some people seem to like it, although I don't get a lot of participation. And I do it unannounced. I don't have a regular schedule, so it's going to be a little difficult. But I have some things that I could talk about, but I'm hoping that people join in on the live feed. I don't know how to do the live feed as far as the comments. So the last one I did a live show last week, and in the comment section, the chat they call it, there was people asking questions, and there was, I don't know, 30 different mentions, 30 or 40, something like that. I saw them during the live broadcast, but then they didn't show up when I posted it. So I don't know how to do that. I'm still new at this. Got a few people there already here. I thank you, Kathy and Roach too. It disappeared. I need to get on my own. I need to get on my computer too. I'm doing this on my phone, but I need to get out. I can't see. What happens is the comment disappears within 5-10 seconds. It appears on my phone, but then it disappears. I saw two people that already made comments here. So let me go to my own account. I got a computer right below here, and go to my own account, and then I can see them and I can respond to them. So open questions, open topics, question answer, whatever you want to talk about. I have a lot of different things I cover on my show. You're welcome to talk, to pick something, throw something at me, and we'll start a conversation going if you'd like. Okay, I'm on live here for watching at this moment in time. And I need to turn the volume down so I don't get feedback. I must have volume because nobody's mentioned anything, so that must be good. And I see, okay, then now I can see the chat. Okay, so anybody have questions about anything that I ever cover on my channel, or maybe some things I don't? I don't know, we can just get into conversation, general topics. Most of my channel is about, for a long time, I did a lot of just debunking stuff. I do a lot of stuff relating to preppers. I do a lot of stuff relating to radiation and nuclear power. I do a lot of stuff dealing with health. A lot of different topics that I can cover, and I know my topics pretty well. Typically, I'll tell you if I don't know the answer to something, I'll tell you either I don't know or I just say I'm ignorant about it, because I'll be the first to admit I'm ignorant about a lot of things, but I do know a lot about a lot of different topics. Construction, been out burning wood today. In fact, for 7 days in a row, I've been burning wood. Basically, a lot of work. Had a lot of leg cramp potential. If you get leg cramps, here's something you can check out. If you think you have, after working really hard, I lay down and go to bed, and at like midnight or 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, my legs just lock up and throw me on the floor sometimes. Well, with me, this is my personal, it's heavy activity. Hello there, 2 more people chatting here. What are your thoughts on AI and where's that heading? Okay, let me finish the quick topic about, for leg cramps, try, for me, it works for me is magnesium, taking magnesium supplements with potassium, magnesium, potassium tablets or capsules, and then also quinine bark as supplements. So I take more on the days that I'm working really heavy. I take more, and then I'll also use the low-level laser on my legs and some other things that I do. But anyway, so the question was, the first question was AI, and unfortunately, I have seen a lot of talk about it. And Elon Musk has an opinion that he's been spreading far and wide recently about how dangerous it could be. I've encountered AI already on some of the fear-mongering channels that, like for nuclear, because I always debunk nuclear stuff, the stuff relating to Fukushima especially. And there's this one channel, which I won't even mention because it's a loser channel. He has AI does all his answers for him. So I'm basically battling a bot. And it's the bots lie. I think Elon Musk also mentioned that. And I saw an interview with Makaku Kichu, that famous physicist. I don't know if I said his name right. The AI lies. It takes all the information from all over the entire internet and tries to condense it and tries to provide an answer. So I'm talking to this bot, and I'm showing how the bot is lying, because the more prevalent information about nuclear is lies. And I'm throwing back at the computer, at the AI, what the reality is, and then real with links and so on. I found it very easy to debunk an AI. Okay, at least for what I was doing with nuclear. I don't have much of an opinion other than that. I don't. AI is going to eventually be in all our cars, where cars are going to be self-driving. I don't. I'm not going to have it. I don't have any cars with computers in it, let alone going to have AI in it. I got stuff that's still got points and condenser, and so I'm not too worried about that happening for me anyway in my lifetime. But we're going to see them all over on the road. AI. That's the first time. The first place you're going to see AI mostly is in cars. In the car, is your car going to shut down? Is the car? I did a show about this many years ago about self-driving cars, and there's some interesting things about it that are really, really dangerous and scary to think about. Here's something to be scared about. And there's some states have already done this. Michigan, and this was years ago. Probably more states have done it now because it's more possibly prevalent now, where the insurance companies have basically said we're not going to cover personal injury from self-driving cars. The government allowed this to be in the legislation has allowed this to happen, to where release of liability from the insurance companies for these things. So you can imagine a future where, okay, a lot of people go pick their kids up from school. So you send the car up, pick the kids up from school. You're waiting in the traffic jams that generate around these schools when the class gets started and class gets less out. And let's say along the way it maybe hit a kid, and the car continues on and goes home. You've got your child's back, and you don't know anything about it, and then there's a knock on your door. Police. You're being arrested for a hit and run. But I wasn't in the car. You're still liable for it. If your car hit a kid and injured a kid and left the scene, you are still liable for that. But no buts. The legislation's already there in a lot of states that is going to keep the insurance companies from being liable for that. You see, there's so many sticky wickets with the self-driving cars. I hope we don't ever see the day where everything's self-driving. Frankly, they are safer, but there also have been accidents involving fatalities with self-driving cars. A lot less than regular cars, to be sure, but they're still there, and the problems with it could be massive. Imagine getting in your car, going to work one day, and then your car, you could turn the key, get ready to go, and the car needs to update to the internet. How long does it take your computer to do that when it's trying to update? Honey, I thought you left for work. The damn car's updating. Or you're waiting at a stoplight and the car decides to update for then, and then you're blocking traffic. There's a lot of things. These things can be worked out. But the AI question, I don't really have a lot of opinion about it. I've watched videos about AI music, and it seems pretty lame. I think it's just at such an early stage that I don't think it's anything to be concerned about right now. Maybe someday it might be. I don't know. Ask Hal, right? Okay, so unfortunately, I don't have a really good answer for you about the AI. I'm getting a little bit of a leg cramp right now, actually, and I don't have my supplements with me available to me, so I got to straighten my leg out. I'm sitting down, but I need to rearrange here because I worked a lot today and a lot for a good week. Anything else anybody else wants to talk about? I talked about. I just got off the air live with Liberty Tree Radio, and I did look up a lot of things for the show that I did there. And what I talked about was solar energy. Anybody want to hear about solar energy? What the greenies tell you about solar energy is a lie, especially when we're talking about grid. When we're talking about grid and what I call ruinables, because that's what they're going to do. They're going to ruin the grid. Because the greenies want to do away with nuclear. They want to do away. They don't want any more hydroelectric. The turtles, don't you know? And they want to do away with fossil fuels. What does that leave you with? That leaves you with wind and solar. So hydroelectric, not many want to get rid of the hydroelectric, which is really good because hydroelectric is one of the best we have and has the potential for storage. But wind and solar and geothermal has a potential too. Only in certain places of the world. It's not really feasible in most places of the world. It can be done anywhere in the world if you drill dig it, dig it deep enough. But for most, like Iceland, is great, and some other countries of the world, I think somewhere in Indonesia, it's being used. And here in the United States, I'm in the U.S. We actually produce more geothermal electricity than any other country in the world, but it still only amounts to 0.4%. I think it's 0.4% of our electric grid is geothermal. Geothermal is great. It's just it's great. If you want to put geothermal plants around Yellowstone and any other place there's like potential volcanic activity, that's where geothermal does make the most sense. But if they do it, you're not going to do away with solar. I'm sorry, you're not going to do it with fossil fuels if you're going to go renewables, because you need them to back it up. Here's an example. Right now, I'm sitting under a 4,000 watt array, a solar array, photovoltaics, it's called. We always called them photovoltaics back in the day. I've been doing solar for 40 years. We always call them photovoltaics. Now they just call them solar panels. There's other types of solar panels, but because we had solar thermal panels and we had photovoltaics. That's what we had back in the day. Solar thermal that heat, right? Heat water, generally heat water. Also could heat air. So anyway, solar panels today have gotten cheaper, but it's still very expensive. Because here's the thing, 4,000 watts above me. Today, there's still daylight out today, but yesterday, if that 4,000 watt array that it's rated at, produced electricity all day, it would be 2,880 kilowatt hours from a 4,000 watt array. That's what it would produce. But the reality is, it only produced, I'm sorry, that's in a month. In one day, it has the potential to generate 96 kilowatt hours. 96 kilowatt hours in a day. And that would be your best day. That's 24 hours of sun, which we don't really have. I try as I might, I can't generate electricity at night with my solar panels. Yesterday, we had no clouds yesterday where I'm at in Michigan. 28.4 kilowatt hours. These are real numbers here, folks. 28.4 kilowatt hours for a potential of 96. So you need to basically quadruple the rated amount to get the amount of electricity you think you're going to get with solar. Here's another example, and the numbers pretty much jive with this. The best month I've ever had in the 4 years that this system has been in operation is 702 kilowatt hours for the entire month. 702 for the entire month. Best month. The worst month is 84. And that'd be like in December. That was in January last year. The other one was June. We got more daylight hours in June and July, so you're going to get the most electricity from your solar array in June and July. Whereas if you're in the wintertime, you're getting less hours, and you're 84.3 kilowatt hours for the entire month of, I think it was December of last year, the worst. And what they should be able to generate in one day, right? A 96 in one day. So in other words, one full day of sun, 24 hours of sun, is better than the entire month of December, at least in this climate. These numbers will vary in any part of the country you're in. So you have to do calculations if you're going to install a solar system of what you think you're going to need to use, and based on your climate where you are. The clouds. Here's the thing: 4,000 watts. It only produces that. It doesn't produce it ever, but at noon, it's a pretty much a straight curve. If you look at a perfect I can't show you because it's on my phone, but a straight curve up, and at noon, it's producing almost 4,000 watts if there's no clouds. Almost 4,000 watts, and I say almost because as soon as about 1 to 2 hours after the solar system is installed, it loses 1% of its capacity right then. And it also loses capacity. It has losses. In the end, you only get about 76.2% of your potential, because you have things like your wiring losses, 2%, snow on the panels, 0. In the summer, in the wintertime, sometimes it's 0 with a lot of snow on the panels. Any snow on the panels, really. Dust and dirt, you can lose 5% with dust and dirt or smoke on your panels, dirty panels. The angle of the sun, typically if they're on your roof, you can't change the angle of the panels, right? There's fixed on the roof. And so only 1 or 2 times a year do you get a 90% perpendicular, 90-degree perpendicular sun hitting the panels, unless you can adjust them, and typically you can't adjust them. So anyway, you're losing about 5%. In the morning, the sun might be coming in at a weird angle like this on your panels. In the evening, it's coming like this. And that's less surface area being exposed to the sun, so you get less electricity. So that's a bell curve. Starts at about 6 or 7 in the morning and then goes to about 8 at night, at least in this time zone. And it's almost nothing in the morning. And it's nothing at all for the 8 hours or so that it's dark, at least at this time of year. So think about this. When these greenies compare solar or wind, solar to nuclear, let's say, because they like to demonize nuclear. How expensive nuclear is. Well, no, already I just showed you need 4 times the size of a solar array to equal the numbers the greenies are giving you. If they're rating a solar plant at 1 terawatt of electricity and the nuclear power plant as 1 terawatt, no, that's rated numbers. That's not actual production numbers. You have to have a solar plant 4 times that size in the summertime to match that nuclear plant, because that nuclear plant runs 24/7, right? Unless it's down for maintenance or something, 24/7. You have to have a plant that's 4 times the size, so you get 4 times the cost. Not only that, but you have to replace it 3 to 4 times in the lifespan of that nuclear power plant. Nuclear power plant will last 60 to 80 years. Solar, anywhere from 15 to 30, depending on the type of panels there are. So you have to replace that entire 4 times already the size. You got to replace it 3 or 4 times in the same time frame as that nuclear plant. The greenies don't tell you that. Solar is more expensive. Not only that, but solar doesn't work without something else backing it up. Yeah, it produces whatever it's rated for almost at noon, if it's not cloudy, for an hour roughly. The rest of the time it's not. So you have to have something, and then solar starts going down in the evening, and that's when people get home and they start using more power. California is a good test case. California and Germany. California actually, they're already at a point where they have too much solar. They have solar glut, where there actually been times where they've actually paid Arizona to take electricity from their grid because they have too much solar. But yet what happens is the sun starts going down, people go, and then, so now you need a peaker plant, and that's usually natural gas. It could be coal, it could be something else. Fossil fuels. But the greenies want to do away with fossil fuels, right? You got to do away with fossil fuels. That's what the greenies tell us. What are you going to do? How are you going to get electricity then? You get a little bit from geothermal, a little bit from hydroelectric. It's not going to cover the bases. Batteries, you say, oh well, if all the electricity sources were shut down today, worldwide, we're talking worldwide, all the energy sources were shut down worldwide today, you would have about 1 minute and 12 seconds of electricity that's in storage. That includes pumped hydro, batteries, and other things. That there's about a dozen different technologies, but none of them are viable. None of them are really going to be cost effective to do what they think the greenies are trying to tell you they're going to do with solar. Wind is in a similar position. Wind, 25 miles per hour. That's what most home systems are rated at 25 miles an hour. In other words, if it was 25 miles per hour wind all the time, then it's going to produce roughly what that number says, minus the line losses and other things. But it's not 25 miles per hour. And most of the time, in fact, if you look at where you are right now, you're probably going to find it's somewhere between 6 and 8 miles per hour average on a year average basis. Yeah, so there are times it's going to be producing its full potential, but a lot of times you look up and the blades aren't spinning. Right? You look up and it's not spinning. In the nighttime, it's generally not spinning at all. It's usually most night times, not all the time, but most of the times it's not spinning. And then my solar puts out nothing. Now, here's another thing. The greenies lie on so many levels with this. So many levels. You need a plant 4 times the size to match that nuclear plant. You need to replace it 3 or 4 times to match that nuclear. You got to reduce it by another 25% or so, because 76.2% of the actual energy production numbers you can actually expect to get out of it at that point come down to the down the wire, so to speak. And but it doesn't work at all without having something else backing it up. So now you have to add in a cost of a natural gas peaker plant. For the time because when a cloud goes over, you should see the scales. When a partly cloudy day, production is going like this. Cloud going over, you can see when the clouds go over. It drops down tremendously when a cloud passes over. And so this peaker plant, are you going to expect your lights to just keep flickering on and off when the sun goes down? Are you going to put up with that? Is that something you want? That's what the greenies want to give you. You got to have a way to balance that energy. So you're going to have a peaker plant. A natural gas plant can zoom right up and cover that base right away. People don't think about these things. Batteries. Do we have what we think and not only they're trying to force us all into electric cars, and believe me, I'm in favor. I've had electric cars for 40 years. I had electric cars before anybody knew there were any electric cars on the road. I've had 4 electric cars in my lifetime, starting in the 80s. Okay, but anyway, I don't have a Tesla. I haven't had a new electric car for almost 20 years now. But they're going to try to force into electric cars. A lot of the people that are knowledgeable about this topic say in their postings that there's not enough lithium and cobalt, iron, copper, and some of the other minerals that are needed to make these batteries. But there's not enough to be mined in the entire planet. That's what a lot of them are saying. And then you're going to also going to try to make batteries for the grid, because that's what the greenies think they're going to get rid of fossil fuels. They don't think so. Something's not kosher here. They're lying to you. Okay, nobody wants to join in on the conversation. Nobody wants to. I could go on forever about this topic. If you'd like to change the subject, we can, because I know about solar photovoltaics very well. I've been doing it for many, many decades. And electric cars. Electric cars are not the way to go either. But I mean, they're okay for short distances. Back in the day, I mean, electric cars, back when I had electric cars, well, I still have electric cars, but 50 miles distance is like the range. That was kind of the limitation. It was using lead acid batteries. Now we have lithium ion batteries for that. And I have a lithium ion battery bank for one of my solar arrays for an off-grid system, because you have off-grid and then you have grid intertie. What I'm sitting right now is grid intertie. So when I'm generating electricity that I'm more than I'm using, it goes back to the grid. Whereas another system I have is completely off-grid, not connected to the utility in any way, so it has a battery storage. That you have to have it, unless you don't want electricity at night or any time when it's not sunny. Right now here, we got the sun going down. I really would be producing, probably with that particular system, I'd probably only be producing a dozen watts or so. It'd be next to nothing, because the sun's going down right now. Okay, so when you think, if you're thinking about doing a solar system, you need to have, that's the 2 directions you need. You need to either go off grid completely or grid interconnected. Somebody says, what's the best way forward, General? I presume you're talking about electricity, because that's what we're talking about here, the grid. We need to increase our nuclear. Besides what the greenies lie about nuclear. The press have been lying about nuclear for half a century. They've been demonizing nuclear. The waste is not a problem. In fact, that's one of the biggest selling points of nuclear energy. It's safe. It's the safest we got. It's even safer than hydroelectric or solar and wind. And it's clean. It's very energy dense. There's very little waste, and the waste is easily dealt with. But they want to make it appear that it's hard to deal with it, and it's not. It's not hard at all. It's a political problem, but it's a political problem on purpose. Solar and wind are okay, but you got to have something backing it up. And nuclear isn't the best thing to back it up either, frankly, because nuclear is hard to ramp with demand. It can change. Nuclear works best when it's steady state. They call it what they call base load. When it's a solid 100% all the time. That's when nuclear shines. It can be adjusted some, but it doesn't instantly change. You can't change it instantly. You're going to need some natural gas for that. Natural gas, coal, some other form. Geothermal could. Hydroelectric can. Hydroelectric is our best bet. Unfortunately, it's very hard to expand. I don't have a perfect solution, but you're not going to get rid of fossil fuels on the grid, not unless we come up with some other major technology that's going to work. Fusion, that's been a promise all my life. Been promising me that forever. You know how many times I've heard I even heard one just yesterday or day before, another fusion breakthrough. How many times have I heard these breakthroughs? And then where is it? It's never nowhere to be found. I got nuclear fusion on my roof, nuclear fusion collectors on my roof. So I've been using it for 40 years. But forget about nuclear fusion. I mean, don't forget about it, do still the research on it, but don't think it's going to save you. Nuclear fission works. Why are you going to ignore nuclear fission when it works, when nuclear fusion, which we don't know how to make it work? And how can you tell me that it's going to be safe, it's going to be clean, it's going to be unlimited? You don't even know what this planet looks like. How do you know it might destroy the Earth? I don't know. Having the power of the sun down the block doesn't, to me, sound like real safe, but I don't know. I don't know enough about the way they're doing it now, and our scientists don't know what it will look like when it's all said and done, if we even get there. So how can you say it's safe and no waste and all these things they say is how wonderful it is when you don't even know what the planet's going to look like, or if we can do it? That doesn't make any sense to me. So the best way forward is if you're going to try to reduce fossil fuels, you better increase nuclear. Better increase it a lot. But you're still not going to do away with fossil fuels completely unless there's some other technology that comes along, or we find some other way, or quantum leap in battery technology. And yes, I mean literally a quantum leap in energy storage technology. Doesn't have to be batteries. It could be pump storage. But we have about a dozen different ways we can store electricity. And you need to store the electricity or else generate it immediately to work with solar and wind. Solar and wind, you're going to have an extremely unreliable grid. You're going to have exorbitant electricity rates for the reasons I told you. It's a lot more expensive than nuclear. You're going to have massive rolling blackouts, and you're going to have energy rationing. And I said energy, not necessarily electricity, because energy is not just electricity, but for the grid, it's just electricity. But we're going to have energy rationing, and we can see also already with gasoline and diesel fuels and all the things that are going on, and how they've debauched our fuels. Oh, how many engines I've had to replace carburetors for because they're running this damn alcohol in the fuel. So the best way forward is to, if you're going to reduce fossil fuels, and I have no problem getting rid of fossil fuels if we can, but we can't. And you're not going to get rid of it entirely with nuclear either. Sensible use of hydroelectric will be very helpful, but it won't cover the bases either. What's going to have to happen is, and this is already being done in a lot of places in the country, there's going to have to be higher electricity rates, especially when electric cars come along, higher electricity rates for different times of the day. For example, what if they're going to force us into electric cars, which it looks like they're trying to do, you're going to need to get you're going to need like a base load. Ideally, you want the grid to be solid, steady the whole way, 100%, straight. Nuclear can do that very easily. Then you wouldn't need anything else but nuclear. But the way it is now, it basically goes up, peaks in the morning a little bit, goes down a little bit, and then peaks up a lot more in the evening, and then goes down. You got to have a way to ramp your the grid. You got to have a way of doing it, and we don't really have a good way except natural gas right now. Where was I going with that? Can't remember where I was going. I had a train of thought. I was going somewhere, and a very important point I was trying to make, and I forgot what it was. Electric, the rates. So ideally, you'd want to level the grid out. And a good way to start to do that, and this is being done in some parts of the country, where they charge you less per your electricity at night. When everybody's starting to go to sleep and the power levels drop, that'd be the best time for your car to automatically start charging. And that would be a way to more level the grid. And so that's one option that we could. There's certain administrative things that could be done in order to get us there, and that would be one way to get us to more steady state. If we have any kind of storage, use the storage. There is one nuclear power plant that it's not built yet. It's in Wyoming. It's called. You can look this up. Natrium, one word. It's by a company called TerraPower, 2 words. And this plant has potential. It's not built yet, so I can't say for sure. But the way it's designed, and it's a Bill Gates thing, the project, and he's going to put his own money up for it, and the government's matching it. But it's going to be built in Wyoming. It's replacing a coal plant, and that's the ideal thing to do. Smaller nuclear plants to replace coal plants. The infrastructure is already there. The transformers, the wires, everything's ready. That just when you're decommissioning a coal plant, build a nuclear plant, and build small modular reactors too. That's another thing. You can put small modular reactors instead of spending billions of dollars for these humongous ones. You can spend millions of dollars instead on these smaller ones that can be put anywhere and that are also very safe. But what makes this Natrium plant different than all the others as far as nuclear goes. It's not so much the size. It's a fairly small plant, but it's got molten salt storage. Molten salt stored at, I don't know, 3,000 degrees Celsius or something ridiculous, something really high. The nuclear energy can heat this up, and they can store it, and it can be used for, I think they say 5 hours at a time to increase the capacity of the plant by 50%. In other words, if the plant is rated, I'm just picking out a number here, I don't know what the plant was rated. If the plant is rated at 100 kilowatts, that's way too small. 100 terawatts. 100 terawatts, so let's say it's rated at. For up to 5 hours at a time, it can produce 150 terawatts. So that could fill this molten salt storage. It can run the additional turbines and cools down, and then you can recharge those storage tanks over the day. That could be a game changer for nuclear. If this plant works, I don't remember what it's supposed to be completed by. It's not a huge one, but they're still talking like 8 years to build the thing or something. And nuclear does not have to be built doesn't have to take 10 years or 20 years like people wanted to cry about. China's doing full scale ones in like 4 years. South Korea also 4 years. They're doing 4 years. But think about this. Many countries have been using and building small modular reactors for many decades in 2 years or less for millions, not billions. Let me say that again, because it's going to go over your head, a lot of you. Many countries have been building and using small modular reactors for many decades, built in 2 years or less, and it cost millions, not billions. U.S. is one of them. 7 countries, actually. What am I talking about? They're floating on water all over the country, all over the world. That's right. And in fact, Russia has one that's basically a portable nuclear power plant. They can take it to a dock in the Arctic and power entire communities from the shore. Same thing could be done with our nuclear-powered submarines and ships. They're small nuclear power plants. You can actually park a submarine on the dock and power a city. And it could be done if we aren't doing it. Although Russia has done one, they have more planned. That could be done. And that could be done really quickly. Because they say, oh, it takes too long, it's too expensive. I've already explained to you how solar is actually more expensive than nuclear. But not that none of the greenies tell you. The greenies want to cry all kinds of nonsense. So if that plant is successful, that could be a real game changer, because then you don't have to worry about batteries and the minerals needed to make the batteries. And the storage problem is largely solved. The science is there. It looks like it works. And there was some molten salt reactors. There's a different type of solar, concentrated solar, that sometimes would heat molten salt, and they could be used in that manner, where you have a whole field of mirrors focusing up on a tower. A lot of you probably seen this, and it heats super hot this one spot, and you do that and then heat up salt and use that for generating electricity and even store it. So it is valid science. Whether or not it's going to be practical and usable in a nuclear power plant that's going to be built in Wyoming, that could be another story. But that could be a game changer for nuclear. We need a game changer in our grid. If the greenies think they're going to get rid of fossil fuels, we need a game changer. We need something completely different, because what we got isn't going to work. Not going to work. Let's see. What do you think about reprocessing depleted uranium fuel into plutonium fuel? Okay, I think you're kind of getting terminology messed up there a little bit. First of all, the waste is one of the biggest selling points of nuclear. That's right. I said waste is one of the biggest selling points of nuclear. What can that be? It lasts millions of years. I hear it all. You can't do it. We don't have anything to do. There's much less of it. Let's take coal ash as an example, and look this up. Enter in the internet, and you'll be shocked. Coal ash is more radioactive than nuclear waste. Go ahead, enter that in. Ask Mr. Google. Coal ash is more radioactive than nuclear waste. But yet we don't. It goes everywhere, right? It goes in the atmosphere and drops out wherever. It's in your yard. Nuclear waste is the most controlled substance on the planet. Essentially, it's taken out of and put into after it's being decommissioned from the reactor. It's taken out these really long rods, spent fuel rods, and they're put in a what they call a fuel storage pool. What do they call it? Fuel pool. What do they call those? I'm losing my train of thought at the moment here. Storage pools. They're just sitting in water, basically, about 20 feet of water on top of the rod. So they're pretty deep, and that blocks out the radiation. Nobody in world history has been harmed by stored nuclear waste. And it sits there for 5 years, 10 years, and then they're put into casks, which are made of steel, copper, concrete, huge drums that are basically indestructible, and they're basically stored there because here in the U.S. we don't have a way of dealing with it at this point. But that's by design. I'm going to look something up here. I'm going to put it in the comment section for you people, because nobody's going to believe this. I don't know if I did this. I did something similar. Let me see. What do I want to look up under? Nuclear Regulatory Commission. No, I need to find the nuclear waste. Yeah, this is really interesting. This kind of proves how our government, and the question was reprocessing. It started out as reprocessing. Reprocessing depleted uranium is different than when we're talking about reprocessing spent fuel rods. Okay, it's got some uranium in it, but that's not. I think that's what the person's talking about. Let me read this. This is from a .gov website. It's from the U.S. Government Accountability Office. When you say, well, we don't have any way of dealing with the nuclear waste, that's because the Greenies are forcing it. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission has basically not allowed any new nuclear power plants in like 40 years, other than the one now that's been opened up in Georgia. They've been purposely putting nuclear power down, intentionally trying to destroy nuclear power. And this is how they're using the waste as a gotcha tool to try to convince you that it's something evil. And I need to, well, here's what I'm going to do, so you can follow along with me. I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to put it on as the chat. How do I do this here? I did it once before. I'm going to put this here so you can read it along if you want, because you may not believe me. I just now put in the chat the link to the website, .gov, that I'm going to be reading here. I'm going to be reading a portion over here for, because you aren't going to believe this. The Department of Energy, this is a .gov, the U.S. Government Accountability Office. The Department of Energy faces challenges storing and disposing of the nation's spent nuclear fuel and treating and disposing of defense nuclear waste. Radiation, oh, okay, well, here, I'm reading the wrong part. Here, let me cut to the chase. If you scroll down to the bullet point, a couple paragraphs down, there's a bullet point. Quote, the nation has over 85,000 metric tons of spent nuclear fuel from commercial nuclear power plants. The Department of Energy is responsible for disposing of this high-level waste in a permanent geologic repository, but has yet to build such a facility because policymakers have been at an impasse over what to do with the spent fuel since 2010. That's when they canceled the Yucca Mountain project in, where is it, Nevada? New Mexico? I can't remember where. As a result, the amount of spent fuel stored at nuclear power plants across the country continues to grow by about 2,000 metric tons a year. Meanwhile, here's the kicker now. Meanwhile, the federal government has paid billions of dollars in damages to utilities for failing to dispose of this waste, and may potentially have to pay tens of billions of dollars more in coming decades. Wait a minute. Did you get that? The nuclear power plants are responsible for disposing of the waste, but the U.S. government's not letting them. They're not letting them reprocess. I'm going to get into that in a minute. They're not letting them reprocess. They're not letting them dispose of the waste by burial, basically. They're not letting them do it because the government can't come up with it's a political problem. It's not a technological problem. We have 4 different ways of dealing with nuclear waste. Burial is the least attractive of all, because you're going to bury something that has over 95% of its energy potential still in that rod. You're just going to bury it and put it underground. That don't make any sense. We should be reprocessing it. Many countries do reprocess. Greenies don't tell you this, but yes, a lot of countries reprocess their nuclear waste, turn it into more fuel. Then they don't have to bury it. There's still some waste, but they don't have to bury it as much of it that way. And there's also fast breeder reactors, or breeder reactors you can use that as fuel, and you can take the nuclear waste and use it in fuel to make more energy, more electricity. If they let us build some more nuclear power plants, fast breeder reactors or breeder reactors, yeah, the nuclear waste can be used as fuel to make more electricity, where it's further depleted, and then it's a lot less radioactive, easier to deal with, and then you've gotten rid of a big problem. Not rid of, but you're reducing a problem even more. So the government has been preventing them from the nuclear power plants, and you paid for this already. You paid in your utility bill to dispose of this waste. That's already been included in the cost of your ratepayers. You already paid for this, and the government's preventing you from doing anything with it. So now they're paying damages to the utilities for not letting them do their job. Isn't that something? Again, this is not a conspiracy. This is a .gov. The link's there. This is a .gov. This is not a conspiracy theory thing. Something the greenies don't want to tell you, because we should be reprocessing it, number one, or using fast breeder reactors. It hurts nobody in the spent fuel pools, until it can be done. If you want to bury it, then it could be put, but we're just going to be digging them back up someday. I mean, really, all that energy down there being wasted, and it's safe as can be. Even if this is going to shock a lot of people too. Did you know there is a 2-billion-year-old nuclear waste site in this world? 2-billion-year-old nuclear waste site, nuclear fission. A naturally occurring nuclear fission site that occurred in the one we know about. There's probably more we haven't discovered yet. Oklo, Gabon. Ask Mr. Google to show you that. OKLO, Gabon. Two words, Oklo, Gabon. Gabbon, I believe, is how it's spelled. And guess what? There was 2 billion years ago, there was no humans to put it in as expensive casks. No humans to even bury it. It was just there, unburied on the surface, after this nuclear fission reaction naturally occurring. The conditions were just right. And what scientists have found, but investigating the site, they've known about the site for decades, they found that this nuclear waste site, it didn't spread contamination all over the place. It pretty much stayed in the general zone that it was in. So in other words, it's even without burying it or even putting in casks, it's relatively safe. You don't want people around that area when it's not buried, but even about being up in open air, it didn't spread all over the world. People, the greenies have an agenda. The greenies are just trying to destroy the grid, trying to get rid of nuclear, trying to get rid of fossil fuels. Don't want any more hydroelectric built, and it's going to be to your demise. Ruinables. That's why they're called ruinables in my book. Okay, let's see here. Anybody else? We have some other comments. I was on a different page. That's the way to go forward. Depleted uranium, I think we're talking about. Let's see. When comparing the amount of radioactivity produced per unit of electricity generated, for example, per kilowatt power, nuclear power actually produces less waste than coal power. Well, yeah, because what he's saying there is very energy dense. I think that it's been said during your lifetime, the amount of radium you use, for your entire lifetime electricity from nuclear power, you'd use about as much as your fist. That's about how much uranium you would consume during your lifetime. So it's very energy dense. Solar is not very energy dense. Well, it's very energy dense of the sun, but not here on Earth. Okay, no other comments. Unless there's any other comments, I may end up. I could talk about this. I don't want to bore people. We don't have a lot of people that came tonight in the room, in the chat or anything. Unless anybody has some things they want to ask me questions about, I may just end it here pretty soon. Again, I have many topics I cover on my channel, many topics. And I'm assuming only the people who subscribe to my channel are the ones that have got notification that I was on. Thanks for the people who thumbs up too, that they say that helps the algorithm. I don't know. The algorithm hates me anyway because my channel is not monetized. I don't play their money game. And I don't have the agenda. Well, if I have I have the agenda of bringing to you the truth. I'm not necessarily pro-nuke. I'd be more pro hydroelectric actually, but we can't really expand it much. And so unless we reduced our amount of electricity we use, hydroelectric is not going to cut it. So we need something else besides. I'm not really pro-nuke. I'm certainly not anti-nuke. In fact, anybody who says they're anti-nuke, that's only because they're ignorant. Because there's nobody in this world, if they've studied the topic of nuclear, that they could possibly be anti-nuke. And then anti-nuclear energy. If you want to be anti-nuclear bombs, that's another story. But anti-nuclear energy, nobody could be. Nobody could be. That's why if the press was telling the truth about nuclear energy and radiation for the last 50 years, we'd already have we'd be in a lot different state today. A lot different state today. We'd have a lot more nuclear. I don't know if we'd be playing around with solar and wind as much as we are. It'd be a lot different story today if the press hadn't been lying. If the press just gave us a fair shake, just talked about everything honestly, then we'd have a different system. And we could have had it 50 years ago. We could have had all our nuclear power plants are like 40 years old, 50 years old. Not all of them, but most of them in this world are pretty aged. How long do you keep a car? 10 years, 20 years at the most? Because you think it's too old? We're talking 70 years, 80 years, we're going to have the nuclear power plants that are still going to be operational. Maybe even 100 years, some of it's just suggested, by doing some upgrades and rebuilding some parts of them. So they're old. We could have had all those replaced. I put the accidents like Chernobyl and Fukushima squarely on you anti-nukers. You are responsible for that, of the media, which creates anti-nukers. Because if the truth was being told about this, we already had all those plants replaced with something much safer. Because the newer nuclear is even safer and less waste, and there's so much more advantages over newer nuclear than the old one. But we haven't really been building any, and that's by design. Not only have they ruined your waste disposal system, but in the U.S., here's what they did to keep us from reprocessing. During the Carter administration, Carter made reprocessing of spent fuel rods in this country illegal. It's made it illegal. There was already some plants being started. I can't remember where they were. Infrastructure being put into place to be able to reprocess nuclear waste, spent fuel. But then Carter just killed it. It was signing it, his paper, killed it. Now, when Reagan came along a few years later, he removed that ban. But by then you've scared the investors. Everybody's gone. The investors left. There's nothing. Nobody's going to go down that road again. And that's why we don't reprocess in this country. Because our government intentionally did that. They're making the waste look like it's a problem, when it's not. The waste is not a problem. It's an issue you have to deal with, but it's never been a technological problem. It's only a political problem. And they've made it that way intentionally. By design. I am not on Twitter and not on any other service. I did create what they call it. There's another video service out there. I do have I have a couple of them now, I guess. One of them, can't remember the name of them now. I don't put any on there, any videos. One of them I have no videos on. God, I can't remember the name of it. The one that everybody, and from what I've been gathering, is probably a whole lot of conspiracy theories, and I'm reluctant to even go on that site but I'm trying to I have a whole other channel where I'm debunking the people who lie about Fukushima. They do it for profit. They do it for money. They lie to you intentionally. They know they're lying to you. They do it for fear mongering because they're going to get you to donate for his great cause for lying to you. And because he went Rumble, that's what he went on Rumble. I was going to go follow him there. I'll create another channel debunking you over there too if I have to, because that's immoral and it's dangerous to our society to have those kind of people running loose, in my opinion. Ones intentionally lie about it, scare you and get their money, and they're making you believe things that aren't true about nuclear energy. Let's see here. I'm not on Twitter. I don't tweet. Good to see me. Thank you. Unless anybody has another topic to add to, I've been on here for about 50 minutes. I'm gonna cut it now. Unless somebody has a question to ask, I've had open questions. I may do this on occasion. I don't know. This doesn't seem to be Rumble yet. The Rumble is the one that I was talking about, but I don't have any videos up there. There's another service I'm on too. That I do have probably, I don't know, there might be 50 videos up there or something, but nothing new that isn't on YouTube. BitChute. I'm on that. I'm on that site too. Forbid TV is the name of the channel if you want to go over there. But you're not going to see anything different over there that you don't see here, because on YouTube is where I put all of my other ones. If I have to, I'll put some. You know, if for whatever reason YouTube has only cut me off on a few videos, and then I just repost them, trying to follow their guidelines because I don't put up with that crap. I'm not in for the censorship, but so I'll find a way around it, and unless I have to go to Rumble, I don't have any videos on Rumble. So okay, everybody, thank you for watching, and I may do this some again some other time. Thanks for being with me. Gonna end it now. So long.